And greetings, everybody. I'm Salvador Cordova. Welcome to the Evidence and Reasons for the Christian Faith video channel. And today this is going to be, and probably for the rest of the week, this is going to be a series of special presentations, primarily oriented to the local church here, McLean Bible, but also to give people around the world who are interested in what's happening here, because this could be a very pivotal set of events that may set the tone for what may be happening to other churches. So just to update those, I'm going to give a little bit of background on what's happening, and I think my fellow members at McLean Bible Church themselves could use a little updating on what's happening. Just briefly before I go on and say hi to everyone like Erica and Emery Moyna, also known as In This Image, an elder who possibly was involved even in the recruitment of David Platt, appears to be having reservations about him. So this is from an insider who's now resigned, as far as I know. I got permission to share his letter with the public, and I think it's going to be very important. It's important that believers hear this. Now, what he has to say doesn't mean I agree with him or what other people have to say, but I think one can see that this is an important voice. This is an important voice. So with that, let me say hi to some of the people in the side chat. We have Emery Moyna, and he said, "More, didn't you get this out of your system last night, or did something happen today that I missed?" Nothing that much new, but this is a developing story, and it's also a chance for me to just reflect and think about what's happening to churches in general. And Erica Hubner, God bless you. She says, blessings and prayers to you. So thank you. Blessings and prayers to you, dear sister. So what's happening? There's, as you saw in the video description, a big vote's coming up in eight days. So this is D-Day plus 8. Every day from now on, it'll just go one number lower, like D-Day plus 7, D-Day plus 6. And D-Day is Sunday, July 18th. $150 million property and a powerful pulpit. The privilege of who gets to speak at the pulpit of McLean Bible Church. But then also, and this is actually kind of, as I think about this, when there's a change in leadership over a church, that's not just pulpit privileges to speak and to influence people's lives, which is, if it's for the better, that's a great thing. But it also is often keys and control over the money and assets. $150 million is a lot. That means someone can be very, very charismatic, get hired as a preacher, and if he can influence the rest of the leadership in the church, he has access to an enormous financial base. $150 million is a huge amount. To the closest parallel I can have to this in the business world is there could be a publicly traded company, and then some people could buy up even a very small fraction of the shares on the exchanges. say they acquire like, say, 5%, they might be able at that point to nominate and then have officers voted in, and then they're able to control. So this is not without precedent, where we call this in the corporate world hostile takeovers. There are opportunities rife for this, and I've seen some great companies gotten taken down by hostile takeover. They take over the company and they basically liquidate the assets to their own benefit. And so I'm not saying that that's what is being engineered here. There's certainly speculations to that effect. If anyone has watched the go to the website, The Enemies Within, and Emery, if you want to add some links there about the enemies within and the attempted takeover of First Baptist Church in Lauderdale, you're more than welcome to. I have to say, what I saw in that video is very disturbing, and there are concerning parallels of what's going on at McLean Bible. I probably might have been more willing to be silent on this, but from the pulpit this past Sunday, a pastor was indirectly accusing me of spreading misinformation in his church. Not just me, but collectively a lot of other people. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. On what grounds is he basing that? On what grounds is he basing that to make that accusation just a blanket accusation? Yeah, there might be someone who's an ex-McLean Bible Church person and member and says something intemperate, or maybe not, but then I get guilt by association. I don't think that's right. So I started to take this a little bit, not just personally for myself, but for my comrades who are good people, people that have been with the church for decades, longer than David Platt. So what's happening? Okay, just to explain everything that's going on, let me just back up for people that are new. This is a very interesting battle now that's brewing between a pastor. Yes, thank you. In his image, provided the link, he said, and after I'm done, you can watch that link. I may even put it in the video description myself. But I tell you what, I'm not going to be offended if you watch. Since I could be totally boring, that video is better because for those that are not part of McLean Bible, that'll tell you what we're up against. It's disturbing. Is this some sort of nationwide conspiracy? I don't know. It does point out that you can get some bad actors that have questionable ethics, how they can weasel the way into a church, get people to drop their guard. They can weasel the way into church, take over the finances. And it is disturbing. It also bothers me that, for the most part, a lot of church members are very trusting people. They give grace and the benefit of the doubt. Those are great qualities. But a wolf can come in and take advantage of honest and good-hearted people. And I'm not saying I have the solution to how to deal with this. It happens. It's prophesied in the Bible. Paul said there will be wolves that will come among you and not spare the flock. There will be wolves that will come upon you and not spare the flock. Paul wept, and this is played out repeated times in church history. Why does the Lord allow this? I've shared this before on other videos. It's one way that God tests his people to see their faithfulness. Because the wolf won't devour you if you stand up to him. So let me back up now. So thank you very much, Emery, for providing the link to the enemies within. And so the situation is, we're concerned, some of us, that there is at the very least, maybe I'll try not to escalate this too much, but there's some questionable things going on in our church. David Platt was voted in with a 95% level of affirmatives sometime around 2017. He was very popular, enthusiastic reception. Since then, the church has lost a lot of members. And there's been some sermons that have been coming out by him and kind of the next in command, Mike Kelsey. And when these sermons came out, there was a lot of disappointment and outrage over what was said from the pulpit. People were leaving. They had a Sunday school that was teaching things that were outside of the Bible. And very respected leaders in the church were questioning this. What happened on June 30th was a congregational meeting, and there's some technicalities associated with this. Enough members came forward and voted no. I was one of them. Now, I was in a kind of strange situation where my membership was tied to my mother's death. Honest truth. And it relates to a letter that I have been given permission to read today. I was told by Mark Gottlieb, they said, well, the church policy is that we discourage dual memberships. It has to be specially approved. And I was thinking, yeah, I kind of like the grocery store model of attending church. It's like, if you don't like the groceries, just go to another grocery store. I don't want to be involved in, and yes, and I saw Dr. Sandy Pigeon recently. I don't want to get involved in, I don't want to, if I go to a grocery store, do I want to get involved in the management of the hiring, firing, and the finances? I just want to go in and go out. And I, excuse me, it's the allergies. I just want to go in and go out. I don't want to be bothered with the management of the grocery store. Well, if one is participating in the ministry where you're building the church, you're volunteering time, you may be even teaching God's people there, it's appropriate you're a member, because then you're part of the management team. You're no longer, quote unquote, the customer. You're part of the kind of part of the teaching of the church. I don't know that there's we can say that there's any formalism to it, but I just felt that this is totally appropriate to do this. And so what happened was, because my mother was very ill, there's a congregation, McLean Bible Church, which is almost walking distance from my home. I said, I want to be a dual member because that church takes care of her. And so Mark Gottlieb told me, he said, I'm going to have to take this up with the chairman of the board. I have to take this up with the chairman of the board of elders at McLean Bible. So this is a congregation of like 200 here in Occoquan. McLean Bible has a congregation like 20,000, almost, not quite, at their zenith. The chairman of the board, and he has a lot of things to deal with, Larry Cooper, he approved of it. He said, Salvador, you can be a dual member, but the provision is when your mother passes away, you're coming back to McLean. So this is, all right, so that's a little bit of what happened. So now let me tell you some things about David Platt. Maybe some of you know this already. Let me try to get my screen share set up here. I found, just Googling around, I found this article here. So now David Platt was at one time simultaneously senior pastor of a megachurch. I gave you the size. He was also simultaneously the president of the Southern Baptist Convention International Missions Board. Oh, actually, Sandy, you're more than welcome here, but Mrs. Pigeon told me tonight, I want Sandy to get to sleep earlier. And since I'm going to try to get to the service early myself, I need to shut this stream down quickly too. But if you want to join, if you want something to say, you're more than welcome to, sir. So let me just type that to Sandy right now. And I'm going to give you a stream link here. One moment here. Thanks everyone for if you want to have a few words here, Sandy, you're more than welcome to before you turn in. Tied. David Platt's tied to the Southern Baptist Convention. That's an understatement. He was president of the International Missions Board, and I think technically he's still considered a Southern Baptist pastor. But I have even more. This is going to get juicy. In 2017, this happened. The International Missions Board had supported the building of a mosque in New Jersey, and that caused one of the trustees to resign. He was upset. It says, a trustee of the Southern Baptist Convention's International Missions Board, of which David Platt is president, has resigned in protest of the agency's participation in a brief last year supporting construction of a New Jersey mosque. And oh my goodness, Dr. Pigeon's here. Hang on, Sandy. Okay, so there's this mosque built in New Jersey. Guess who is helping the legal work for that mosque? Who's the president of the Southern Baptist Convention's International Missions Board, none other than David Platt. And the trustee of that organization was really upset. He said, what are you doing getting involved in this? What are you doing trying to help Muslims trying to sue New Jersey so they could get a mosque? I mean, don't you have better things to do? And then just to confirm this, David Platt later, he apologized. The president of the Southern Baptist Convention's International Missions Board has apologized for his agency's decision to file a legal brief supporting Muslims seeking to build a New Jersey mosque. I grieve how the amicus brief in the recent Moss case has been so divisive and distracting, said David Platt. So at least he's capable of an apology.
Yeah, Sal, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I had forgotten about that. It's a lot of things. I had forgotten about that tie-in that Platt had with that mosque, and that kind of lends credence to a lot of the things that he's railing against now. So it's all very, very unfortunate. And as we discussed tonight, it was when we all went back to do the vote. I walked in, and I had spent a goodness gracious, probably 2,500 hours in that church in the last 7 years doing personnel security work for all those pastors, and all three services every day or every Sunday. And it felt like going home, but at the same time, the tension in the church is just incredible, and oh well.
So let's just clarify a few things for the audience, including members of McLean Bible Church. You and Mrs. Platt are no longer members. Is that
Mrs. Platt?
Mrs. I'm sorry, Mrs.
Yeah.
My brain's not working so well.
Mrs. Let's if we can kind of do a rewind here for people. On 17 May 2020, and the audience can go and look that up on McLean's website. It's still there. He and Pastor Kelsey had given a what we call a dueling sermon, where they basically introduced critical race theory into the church and accused many people of not being welcoming in the church. Now, for those in the audience, we have probably, if one ascribes, and I don't ascribe to it, I'm somewhat colorblind on all of this. You're either a brother in Christ, or we got to get you to be a brother or sister in Christ. And he basically said that, and Kelsey said the same thing, that the church was not welcoming. Well, and then they went through this entire diatribe of pastors within the church who happened to be married to people of other ethnicities, and tried to make the case that, and it was absolutely ridiculous how they did it, and it was just so abhorrent to everything I had ever learned. And my wife turned to me and said, "Are you kidding me? You take a bullet for anybody in that church." And I said, "Yeah, this. I can't even believe this is happening." And so there. After that, that's when the title.
If I could just pause a little bit for the viewers' benefit. Sandy here was on the first responders team, ex-military. Their duty was, if some psycho started trying to shoot up the church, they are tasked with protecting the pastor. He would literally take a bullet for the pastor. And as I mentioned, in my small church, Occoquan Bible, one of the elders was nearly assassinated. So this is serious stuff in the current climate. So
we actually go ahead. We actually have members, special forces, retired SEALs. Myself, I'm the only SEAL on the staff, but law enforcement officers, ex-Secret Service, ex-FBI, all on the team. And our job is just to, protect the church. But we all are also a ministry as well. We engage people. We talk to people, find out how everybody's doing. So we're an extension ministry in engagement, as well as, doing the kind of security work to make sure that there are no threats on the church. And it was just absolutely abhorrent to me and to all the rest of the team that we were in need of some kind of ethnic Gnosticism, as Vodi Bakum likes to put it. I was flabbergasted, and anyway, as we said, a torrent of letters went out to to the pastors, to which we got a lot of flowery answers. And basically, my wife left. I stuck around trying to. I sincerely hoped that there was going to be some kind of repentance on this and saying that there was misunderstanding, but unfortunately, things have doubled down. A group of vetted elders went to the pastorate and to the elders, guys who were stalwarts in the church that were vetted to be elders but had not been installed. And they wrote a wonderful exegesis on why this critical race theory was wrong. They were basically told that, we're not on board with you. Then subsequently, there was a congregational meeting where a lot of the congregants got up and said, we don't understand why you marched in the Black Lives Matter meeting in Washington, D.C. in March of 2020. And some other things happened, and David Platt stood up and said, well, we don't support critical race theory, and it's a tool as per Resolution 9, which, if you don't know what Resolution 9 was, that was introduced into the Southern Baptist Convention by Curtis Woods. And they basically denied it and said, we do not support any of that, and neither do any of my pastors. Well, so, yeah, guess what? So people went back and took all the Facebook posts from those guys and went back again. The whole vetted elder guys went in and said, here's the evidence. And it was denied again, and those guys were dismissed. And so here we are.
So there was apparently
there was a concerted effort.
Pastor Mike Kelsey holding a Black Lives Matter sign.
Yeah. And there was a concerted effort by a lot of smart biblical guys, elders, guys who were vetted as elders, and they went in and gave a whole exegesis on why this was wrong, and basically was blown off. And it's really disconcerting to everybody. So from there, apparently one very prominent pastor, I'll keep his name out of here, had breakfast with him and tried to explain to him, hey, look, you can't be preaching this stuff. It's not biblical. And unfortunately, the pastor doubled down and said, this is the way it is. Now, going back and doing a little forensic evidence on this, I went back, and a lot of people did, and a guy who has been studying this for a long time, Jonathan Harris on Conversations That Matter, went back and showed the entire genesis of this whole critical race theory movement within the Southern Baptist Convention. And a lot of the guys in the audience are watching this. So, but I finally had enough when that pastor had tried to reason, by Isaiah 1:18, come let us reason together, which is also a good apologetic for general revelation. But that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I was done. And, it really pained me because that was the church where I was led to Christ by Lon Solomon. And so it's very, very unfortunate. The whole thing just is so unfortunate. Well, subsequent to that, we found out that the church mission statement was changed. Everything is now about church planting. And church planting is not a bad thing, but the original mission statement as a church, as envisioned by Pastor Lon Solomon, who built the church from 5 families to 18,000 congregants, was to affect culture in Washington, D.C. We had congressmen, senators, and I know that because I dealt with all their security. Yeah, the president was there. We told that funny story, and Vice President Pence was there. He was regularly there, but I dealt with all their security teams, so I know exactly who was there. I mean, members of the cabinet. We had foreign dignitaries, kings of different small countries in Africa, for example. So and the a lot of foreign diplomats, and what a multiplicative effect that is when you are being fed the right gospel and then you return home to your country and you are able to spread the gospel in that manner. So it is in effect a mission of itself. So it was so that's gone, and everything has been into church planting and food delivery, again, which are not bad things, but that wasn't the mission of the church, and it was changed without a lot of people knowing, without the congregation knowing. And for those of you who know church government, our congregation, in the polity sense, the elders work for the congregation and the pastors work for the elders. But unfortunately, some of the elders are doubling down, and this is where it's come to. It's very, very unfortunate.
Yes, and a lot of people also got upset. It's like, why are you destroying our ministries?
The
Volunteer
ministries,
ministries.
all the volunteer
Volunteer.
ministries. And as you know, Sal, and we'll explain it to the audience, that when you become, and Pastor Platt has denied vehemently that we're part of the Southern Baptist Convention. Well, we have the signed documents that we are. And when you do that, you become, you have to align with their ministries, and subsequently none of our ministries were supported. I mean, even the ones that don't cost them any money, we were being denied, rooms to even meet. So,
And what's outrageous about that, David Platt has not only was he simultaneously president of the International Missions Board, helping Muslims build mosques. Then you had pastor of McLean Bible. He also had his own organization called Radical. There's books tied to that. There's office space for Radical on the McLean campus, this $150 million complex, but the apologetics ministry doesn't even get an acknowledgement when we requested one room once a month on a weeknight, $150 million
at no
complex.
cost. Yeah, no
at
cost.
no cost. But Radical will be supported. There's also a Southern Baptist New City network there. So we had, the church was affiliated with the Southern Baptist Church, and we had a Southern Baptist pastor who was the president of the Southern Baptist International Missions Board, helping support Muslims build their mosque in New Jersey. So, sometimes when it just sounds so bad, I just can't help but laugh. I commend him for trying to do a lot, but
well, there is no denying. I have a lot of respect for what David Platt has done with respect to missions overseas. I mean, he's gone to some pretty nasty places, and there's no denying his want of spreading the gospel around the world. However, this was not the place to do it, number one. But unfortunately, this is a systematic takeover, it would seem, if one watches the Enemies Within the Church, First Baptist Church in Naples documentary, that this was pre-planned, years ago, and it's been happening. And all you have to do is watch that documentary, and it's a fairly damning indictment on what's trying to go on. Subsequently, I've learned that so the North American Mission Board has got some serious issues. Will McCraney, I think you and I were talking about that tonight, Sal, that Will McCraney, he was a Southern Baptist Church planter, but he would not abide by what the rules that were handed down by the North American Mission Board to do that. He has won in district court, appellate court. It was kicked up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court didn't want to hear it. They said, take it back down to, there's nothing here for us to see. You won. So Will McCraney was in the right, and there was a subsequent persecution, if you will, on Will McCraney, and very unfortunate.
And one reason I'm hosting these shows, David Platt, this past Sunday was saying people like me, people like Sandy are part of a group that's divisive and using misinformation. I have just read stuff that's in the public domain. How can we be accused of misinformation? I've just read stuff that's in the public domain. It's in public domain that the Southern Baptist Convention regards McLean Bible Church as a Southern Baptist church.
Yep.
And then on Sunday, Dave Platt said, no, we're not affiliated with the Southern Baptist Church. There are numerous spots on numerous Southern Baptist websites that said, we are a Southern Baptist church. And Sandy, you found out kind of in a nice way that we were Southern Baptists.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it goes back to when I started my seminary in 2015. One of the first things on the application when I started my Master of Religious Education was, are you a member of the Southern Baptist Convention? And I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? And they said, yep, you are. And that gives you a pretty big discount on your seminary degree. And I was asked the same thing when I went to Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. Are you a member? And I guess so. Can you check for me? I don't know. And because it just was not a big deal to me. What I wanted was the discount.
This is thousands of dollars. This is thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's thousands of dollars. And they said, yep, you are. And so, the proof is in the pudding, plus the fact
that's evidence. That's evidence our church can be reasonably, any outsider would say reasonably, McLean Bible Church is a Southern Baptist Convention church. Now there's some shady things that I think, sketchy things that are happening as the case got very strong. And then David Platt was denying it this Sunday. He said, no, we're not affiliated with the Southern Baptist Church. Yeah, and then the Southern Baptist Church sort of sent out a letter saying, well, you're not really. And I'm just like, okay, so there's, are you guys covering for each other?
That's exactly what they're doing.
There's a money flow here now. There's a money trail.
Well, let's face it. I mean, McLean Bible Church would be their crown jewel. And the amount of influence, power, money that could be generated by a McLean Bible Church for the Southern Baptist Convention or the North American Mission Board, more specifically, is incredible. So, yeah, all the evidence is there. It's just like it's kind of like a bunch of atheists just denying all the evidence. So.
And from where I stand, there was a time. I mean, you went to the Southern Baptist Convention
Theological
Seminary. Yeah. There's nothing at the time. There was nothing inherently. I never saw anything inherently wrong with going to that seminary.
No, not at all. It was. It's the flagship seminary of all the New Orleans Baptist, Southeastern, Southwestern Baptist, all of those different seminaries. That was the first one that was started, and I didn't think any of it. I just liked their the fact that they had a Doctor of Educational Ministry, which is kind of a newer doctoral degree. It takes a few more classes than a D-Min, but so I didn't give it a second thought, and I wanted to study with Dr. Timothy Paul Jones, who's a great critic on apologist on the Bible, as well as Ted Cable, because they're just outstanding. And I didn't know of any of the controversy that was going on until I actually graduated, and then I saw Jonathan Harris going off with Dr. Fuller getting thrown out of there, and I learned about the whole controversy, and because I had never had Jarvis Williams or Matt Hall or any of those guys that subsequently were pushing this critical race theory. So I was blessed not to have to put up with that nonsense when I was there, but it has exploded there, and I don't know, and I really love Al Mohler's books, but I don't know what he is thinking now.
Well, so the point is it's not. Let's say for the sake of argument, they were still on the up and up. And I'm going to show a tweet here from that Emery provided. The point is that
Yeah, Emery, I can't open that, so sorry.
I'm
I'm on.
going to open it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to open it for us. The point is why do you want to? Why do you violate the Constitution, a contract with the congregation, saying we want to remain independent? Okay, so if you violate it, what you should do is say, "Oh, that was a mistake. We need to undo this." The wrong thing to do is to deny it, to go in denial and say, "No, we're not affiliated," when you really are. That's not good. And kind of one misleading statement kind of leads to others. It's like, okay, if you can be so loose with terminology, how can you be trusted? Because what you say we can't really trust that to, that's what you really mean. You may mean something else. That's not a comfortable situation. That's the best characterization I could give. The worst is that someone's not telling the truth. I feel deeply uncomfortable with that. Yeah. And then on top of that, to say I'm disseminating misinformation in an attempt to help my group control the church. And I talked to people tonight who were involved with us. They said, we have nothing to gain. I'm like, yeah, I know that. I'm not getting any financial compensation for going through this heartache. I've headaches. I've not gotten any offers like, Sal, if you vote, this is, you'll have a job ahead of you. None of that. We're doing this because we care. And yet we're being called, we're being deplatformed. We're being marginalized and shamed publicly.
Well, we've been collectivized. This is exactly what, critical theory, not critical, but critical theory and any kind of Marxist information operations does, is it collectivizes people and then personalizes them and then pushes them away, which is right out of Saul Alinsky. So
this is from Nathaniel Jolly. And this is apparently someone who was with the SBC. When I was a church planter in New York in 2006, North American Mission Board had a guy training us, and he told us not to waste our time on sermon preparation when you can get some good sermons online. I kid you not. The Southern Baptist Convention elite have no problem with Litton doing what he did. So we have a plagiarist as the president of the Southern Baptist Convention. They are now kind of like a governing body over McLean Bible Church when they shouldn't have been. And we have a pastor denying that we are tied with the Southern Baptist Convention. This is not a happy situation.
Yeah, and Emery just posted something about James Lindsay, but it goes right back to Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. Accuse the other party of that which you are doing, and so every time they try to accuse us, I can open up Alinsky's book and I can go right down, each tactic, technique, and procedure, and this is what's happening. It's mind-boggling. So, we're being silenced. We're standing up for gospel truth and trying to stand up for what the church was originally made for. So,
yeah,
because we had a very prominent platform for secular Washington, D.C. In fact, that's what I did my doctoral dissertation on, was, upping the ante on apologetics within McLean Bible Church, with all those surveys I did and everything I did, and I was given the thumbs up saying, hey, we're going to have a better apologetics ministry, etc., by the former interim pastor. And well, that wasn't the case. But anyway, I was just lucky to get my surveys done for my dissertation, but I had to end up doing it with the security team, which, we have 80, 90 members. So because I was given the Heisman in the face by the rest of the pastoral staff on trying to do the surveys with the congregation. and which was a little disconcerting, but I should have seen the writing on the wall.
And it's only that's how I found out about you. An email got to me, and I, with no explanation, but I wanted to help, but I didn't understand what I was trying to fill out. But I said, Sandy Pigeon, former Navy SEAL, I hope I get to meet him sometime. So we ran into each other.
Yeah.
Smoky Saints channel.
Yeah.
I'm like, Sandy, I'm a member of your church. We need to talk.
Yeah. So if I don't. So it's just it's all very what the Southern Baptist Convention. It would seem to me is just trying to do a takeover of the churches and become a denomination within itself, and at least from a fiscal standpoint, to generate more money for church planting and missions. Look, I mean, again, I don't have any problem with church planting and missions, but with what we were doing, we were much more effectual in changing or promoting the gospel with our original church mission than we are with what have we done, 43 church plants, and the irony of it is they're all Southern Baptist Convention church plants, or considered those. But as people know in the audience, church plants fail, and it's unfortunate, but they do fail. And so is the money better spent feeding the congregation and having those kinds of volunteer opportunities, which again outreach to the sphere of influence we call Metro Washington, D.C., rather than church plants where people may or may not go there, and many times they fail. I mean, you can read Autopsy of a Dead Church. We had to read that in our church government class, and
I did not hear anything of these church plants, and what I've been hearing is, and I brought a document with me tonight, and it's the church so-called budget. Not a single line item describing how much money was sent to these church plants using McLean Bible money, supposedly.
Well, the money went. Yeah, the money goes there. It goes up. It goes up, but we never have any accountability of how it comes back down. And
how much, and it's like that shouldn't be a difficult question to answer. And this is the whole thing of transparency. How much money is going to all these other ministries that have offices on our campus, like Radical and New City Network? It's like, okay, what are these foreign entities having on church property? Just because the pastor has a side business there doesn't give him the privilege to just use church resources and then simultaneously cancel ministries that are purely volunteer and not even let them meet. So I personally take exception to that. And I said, there's something here that's not good. But so when they have office space there, member contributions, church contributions are being sent to these organizations. There's no accounting for how much and what part of the supposed official church budget. We had all these line items. Tell us what pot you're taking this out of. And it just doesn't look good. And hence I voted no at the June 30th congregational meeting. And so this is leading to D-Day on July 18th.
Yeah, it's I tell you, it's amazing how many people have stepped up and who have actually either resigned or left the church, and our church numbers are down to about a third of what they were. And I personally don't know if the North American Mission Board, Southern Baptist Convention are very happy with what's going on here. And I think that they're trying to win this at all costs so that they think it can go back to the way it was, because people will just throw their arms up and say, no mas, no mas. was that famous boxer who did that anyway? But so these guys have doubled down, and it breaks my heart. It really does. Not only having
Roberto Duran. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Roberto Duran versus
no mas.
no mas, no mas.
So
no more.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, a lot of this stuff just slipped in because everybody just was very trusting of a guy that was, rightly or wrongly perceived as known, having a very altruistic mission. And again, David Platt's done some amazing work overseas, absolutely amazing. But this was not the place to do it, and I don't know why he. Well, I have a sneaking suspicion. We're going to keep it to myself.
Well, let me just say this. We have the Old Testament was written for our instruction. We have many instances where God said this guy is a good guy, but he messed up here. Yeah. A lot of these Old Testament kings, God said, he followed the Lord, but he'd be like Asa.
Yeah.
Really messed up somewhere, selling the treasury of the temple and trying to bribe an unbelieving pagan king, and God wasn't happy. We have Uzziah, he was prospered, and then he did something stupid, became the leper the rest of his life.
Yeah.
It happens. You can have a godly man that the Lord's favor has been upon and the Lord loves him, but then he ends up like King David. It happens. So, I'm not here to just say this is totally demonize someone, because I think it's more subtle than that. And we as human beings will mess up too. And sometimes in big ways. Our heart generally is probably right, but we can mess up. And some people are trying to point this out to David Platt. And I watched that sermon on May 17, the one that upset your wife. And I said, in my heart, when I saw these guys, I said, Lord, I prayed for them. I said, they're mistaken brothers. They look, it's like, Lord, you gotta help them fix where they are. They don't, I think they're generally on our side, but they're kind of like the kings of the Old Testament that just do something that is just really foul.
Yeah. Well, the one guy that, you and I have talked about this, Sal, the one guy, we'll keep his name out of this, but he was the one guy who stood up and said, vote no, before Platt came in, because he said, look, you guys don't understand. There's some deceptive teaching going on in here. And he said, you'll take a truth, and then you'll slide something in there, and then a truth, slide something in there. And it's all, it's just the same as any kind of, well, let's take the genres that are going on in society today by the left. Let's just take Obamacare. What's it really named? The Affordable Care Act. Well, it's anything but affordable. However, it sounds nice. Black Lives Matter. Well, who isn't in favor of a black life? So how can you be against that? Is really the superficial information technique. The gun safety in America, mayors for gun safety. Well, it's all about taking guns away from people. So it's all very deceptive language, trying to make it acceptable and irrefutable in its prima facie meaning. So,
but specifically to what I heard from Mike Kelsey, he actually said some things that I didn't know. Like, I didn't know George Whitefield had said some really, pro-slavery stuff. I said, that's kind of bad. It's good to know,
well, I think there were some things cherry picked out of there that are a little dubious, but
that is a precursor to say, I'm not going to try to totally trash everything.
No, hey, look, let me tell you something. Before Kelsey went to because he went to Southern at the same time I did. His expository preaching was pretty good. I mean, it was. I mean, there's a reason why they kept him on staff. I mean, he's not a slouch at preaching, but this now magnified love affair that he has with critical race theory, I think it comes from, unfortunately, some New Testament professors that he had, which Jonathan Harris has talked about Jarvis Williams. I can't prove that. I've never seen his transcripts or anything, but it was somewhat pervasive, I suppose, in that department. I didn't observe it. I didn't see anything. But if you watch what Dr. Russell Fuller talked about before he got terminated, and mysteriously, and I have not talked to this guy, Shane Parker, who was the head of the professional doctoral program. He was my reader for my dissertation. He left weeks after I finished my dissertation. My professor, Ted Cable, left. And so I had heard that there was this big expulsion of all these guys out of here. So, and subsequently, after Jonathan Harris had put all this gouge out, for guys not in the Navy, that means information. Thank you. You're welcome. But Al Mohler had Jarvis Williams and Matt Hall come on these. It was like a 5-minute video clip each, and they were kind of doing not a mea culpa, but they had to explain their theology. Well, it had nothing to do with what they were preaching in the classroom. It was, well, here's what I believe, and it was fairly straight biblical talk, and it was more of a covering, shall we say, because he wanted to keep these guys on staff, but all of these other tenured, guys who would be considered tenured professors were fired. Russell Fuller, I mean, the guy was at Southern for 22 years, teaching Old Testament. Now they hired a guy that in Russell Fuller's words says that the Old Testament is filled with a lot of myths and mysticism. Are you kidding me? So what is going on? I would first ask what's going on at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, which I think has been fairly documented, but I don't know. And I say that with a lot of pain and angst because that's where I went to school. So
going back to Mike Kelsey, so I tried to be charitable here and say he had some good points, but then he talks about racial justice. And he said, we ought to fight this like we're fighting abortion, and that if that means political action, we ought to do that. So that's in that infamous May 17, 2020 sermon. So last night, I just said rhetorically, so David Platt, God bless him, he adopted a girl from China, Chinese girl. He has an Asian daughter. God bless him, because it says in the Bible, true religion is caring for widows and orphans in their distress. David Platt has an Asian daughter. And I wanted to say, okay, so Mike Kelsey, are you in favor or are you against affirmative action? You said, let's take political action. I said, okay, here's a tangible example of systemic racism. Are you going to stand up for that? Because this is how you're going to define what critical race theory is. So let's say David Platt's daughter, after
his oldest son is from is it Tajikistan or Uzbekistan? I can't remember which.
That's great.
Yeah.
God bless him.
And I'm all about it, brother.
I'm all about that.
Well done. God bless you. That's
God
awesome.
bless you, Dave Platt.
Yeah.
The point is it's like, okay, so Dave Platt, what do you feel about if your daughter applies to school and she's denied because she's Asian? Do you think that is right? Is that what you mean by racial justice? Because this is a criticism. It's like, this is ambiguity. There's so much injustice in the land. It's like, well, yeah, but are you willing to define what you really mean by that? Are you willing to define it? And when you say take political action, what do you mean? Because to me, as an Asian, this looks like, oh, uh, uh, just because you're Asian and they're overrepresented in these elite schools or even colleges in general or elite high schools, therefore, if they're overrepresented, there's racial injustice there. And I pointed out to the audience yesterday, I said, do you know what it's like to be raised in an Asian home? I was about to say Oriental. Some people say that's politically incorrect. I guess I can get away with it because I'm Oriental. Anyway, academics is important. In my household, relative to other Asians, not so much. But I've seen some of these other Asian families, my cousin or friends, they go home, they don't want to play. They grab their books and they're just reading. And I remember this Chinese woman telling her daughter, "You're going to get straight A's. You're going to get." I got kind of scared when she was saying that. There is an enormous amount of pressure. It's cultural. That this is your life. You're gonna dishonor your family if you don't do well in school. And it carries over in kind of some funny ways, like some of the Asian girls will say, "Yeah, my dream guy, he's going to have glasses," you know. and where's the okay? Where's that? Some of the Caucasian women says, "Yeah, they call those birth control glasses."
That's what we called them in the Navy. These big, huge, thick glasses. Yeah, yeah.
I say
because they were protective glasses, but they're prescription. We called them BCGs. Yeah.
BCGs, birth control glasses.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm just showing kind of the culture thing. And I was telling my mom, I didn't want to wear eyeglasses. I want contacts. She said, "No, you look so much better with glasses. You look so handsome with them." Okay. Because to her, that means you're a scholar. I'm just communicating a little bit of Asian culture here. Yeah. Is it any surprise they're overrepresented in schools? Is that racial injustice?
But see, it comes down to this for me, Sal. It's merit, and it's the heart. I know that there are Martin Luther King's speech was spot on. No matter what you think of Martin Luther King, some people said he was, he has neo-Marxism, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm saying about the evidence, just the evidence, and his letter to a Birmingham jail was exegetically spot on. And so I take that evidence and just say, where's the merit-based, where's the meritocracy rather than the quota, culture. And then unfortunately that's what we're living in, a quota culture. So, yeah.
So my point is like, Mike Kelsey, is that what you mean by racial justice? Do you think that Asians shouldn't be?
Well, it's an interesting thing you brought up affirmative action as well, because
it's like I wanted to say, Mike, you could make me feel welcome in the church if you stood up against this when you're talking about racial injustice. But what I hear coming from you is not very clear.
Yeah, and I watched Vodi Bakum was on, I can't remember the guy's name, is on one of his YouTube channels, but he was talking to him about his new book, Fault Lines. And Vodi Bakum just said, look, it's neo-Marxism, but make no mistake, it's all about power. And then we had this standoff, 3 days ago, with this new group, I never heard of them, called Rise of the Moors. And it's, there are all these separatist groups out there. Some of them are armed. You have this one guy, what's his name? John Fitzgerald Johnson. He claims he was a sergeant major in the Army. I don't know if he was or not. I tried to look him up. He actually ran for president. You can go to his website. And then the guy really made a jerk of himself because he couldn't even operate his own AR-15. He online, and he's supposed to be a sergeant major in the Army. He actually was wearing his sergeant major thing. And I asked my boss, who was a combat engineer, I said, you guys aren't supposed to wear that, are you? And he goes, yeah, that's not good. The sergeant major can community, command sergeant major community, is very, very tight and very disciplined in the Army. And nobody knows if this guy was. And so anyway, but there are all these separatist groups coming out, bringing up things that were settled 150 years ago with 400,000 lives lost. So, one can rightly ask, hey, fellas, did you read the real history? I'm just
Yeah.
wondering here, So.
And then covering another thing that during our prayer meeting tonight, actually on some level, I wish we had a live stream to see our meeting tonight. But there's some people, privacy issues, and I respect that. But this group that David Platt was saying are divisive and misinformation. You should have seen, we were there praying for him, praying for Mike Kelsey. We were praising the Lord, singing hymns. We weren't trashing it. I'm being more critical in this stream of what's going on than what the group collectively were saying. We're praying for him. Lord, lift him up. Help him to be a good shepherd for the flock.
Yeah, exactly.
Is he going to play that on Sunday morning and say, this is that group I talked about?
I'll tell you what, tomorrow is going to be a very, very interesting day for me. I think there's going to be a bifurcation. Either he's going to double down again, or he's going to try, or maybe the tactic will be to try and mollify everything, come out with the weeping attitude again, which he tried to do at the vote, which it just gets really old. I mean, seriously, dude, you're going to stand up there and weep again on stage. Nobody's buying it. We have one guy, you'll love this. The first sermon that he gave, and it was exegetically pretty good, but his expository preaching has gone down the tubes lately. But he got very emotional on stage, and one of the guys on our team was a gangbanger in Miami. And he said, I ain't putting up with this crap. He threw it at the microphone and left. He saw through it right away, and it was hilarious. He's getting ready to move back to Florida, but he saw through the emotionalism right away, and he said he's wrong on this point, and then he's busting out crying. What's up with that? I'm like, okay, brother. God bless you. So yeah, I'd be interested.
So what are you gonna bet that he's gonna double down tomorrow? I started to smile when you said you'll make a bet. I'll say gentleman's bet here.
Yeah.
I say he's gonna double down. What do you think?
If
Emery says
performance points to present trajectory, I agree with you.
All right, so three of us will see.
Yeah.
And so I might have a small D-Day plus.
Emery said in here that his dad's having a tough time at his church with this.
With the woke stuff? Yeah. So this is something, one other thing I wanted to point out, and it came out, I was talking about our meeting tonight, and so I was there, Sandy was there, we were worshiping the Lord, we were praying for David Platt. After he said all these things about us, we were saying, God, be with him, strengthen him, direct him. It says in Timothy, pray, give thanks.
Yeah, we want him to change.
We were praying for him. Okay,
we want him to change his heart, just like you pray for presidents you didn't vote for. You want them to act in God's stead, as per Romans 13. It's then when they don't that Romans 13 becomes not null and void, but you have to stand up and do something. So,
but one of the prayers we prayed tonight was for the staff at the church. Because this whole thing about what's going to happen is, I don't know if they're going to do this like they did the last time where they had the lawyers, a law firm counting the votes. And I'm realizing that actually makes sense when you have $150 million property at stake. You do want to get the vote right because that is a lot of money. And this is a powerful, influential position. You'd never see this in like a small little congregation. That's just ridiculous, getting a law firm to inspect the vote. But I had to submit my ID. I gave them my passport. They said, yeah, you're on the rolls. We'll give you this. But this time, the ballots will have your name on it. Like, okay, you want to kick me out of the church? Forget about any more volunteer work or contributions. It's not going to hurt me. But there's staff workers there. There are staff. The last vote was decided by maybe 5 people, as little as 5 people. That's kind of the rumor. And everyone says, yeah, we knew it was going to be a close vote. 5 people. Putting this name there, and there had been letters from former staff, and I think you know this, Andy, we had waves of staff members quitting because of Mike Kelsey. There's staff that could still be on board that are not happy.
Yeah, 2 more just quit since the vote.
Holy smokes! Okay, are they still McLean members? Which would be great if they're ex-staff members. But this is, I'm just trying to tell. This doesn't, the optics of this, that is the superficial way this looks. Just from the surface, this doesn't look good.
Absolutely, because yeah.
You can, it's not so much targeted, well, not immediately to people like me, but I might get scrubbed from the rolls. They see that no vote. They might find some excuse like they've been doing, like the couple from Florida, your friends. And
yeah. The couple in Florida, they still have their house here. They have all their cars registered here. They were just back here. Because they can. They bought a condo down in Florida, but they still have their house here. They still have, again, everything is, they're still members. They were still going online. And so how does one disqualify them from voting? You can't do it. It was done arbitrarily 2 weeks before the vote happened, and
they drove 17 hours.
Yeah.
Only to find out, you're disqualified.
Yeah, exactly. Emery says the SEIU is going to show up and vote, basically. Yeah, I tell you what, at this point, I know it's probably perhaps an extrapolation, but it's gotten that ridiculous, in the desperate actions that are going on with this pastoral staff. It's just unbelievable.
2 more quit. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
And then, so they're already saying, oh goodness, that's within if that happened after June 30th, this is within maybe after Dave Platt's July 4th announcement that you're going to have your name on the ballot.
Yeah. Well, that whole thing, that whole tantrum he had, it really turned a lot of people off. So we'll see.
Oh yeah. And one of our mutual, she was there tonight. She's been so reluctant, and she said she likes the grocery store model of the church. It's I don't want to be involved in management. I totally respect her on that. But she said, she and a friend got bothered by the fact they want to conduct this vote, which is a very financial affair, in the middle of a worship service when God should be the center. Not, they're making this.
Good point.
Some people, this is resonating. They can just smell something. They said, that's not right. We are here to present ourselves before the Lord. Why are we doing business in the middle of a worship service? That's not right. This is dishonoring to the Father in heaven. We're taking our personal business. You're supposed to, in a worship service, kind of drop your personal business, take care of it another time. This is a sacred time. She came tonight. She's perennially I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be involved. It's I understand that, but that bothered her conscience. And so again, this whole thing also with the staff, as we were praying tonight, one of the women prayed and said, please help the staff, help them not to be intimidated, help them to vote their conscience. And I said, goodness, they're putting their livelihoods on the line here. And this is not necessary to do that to them. What's this with voter security? There are any number of ways to do that without identifying them, and they're going to be intimidated. They know for a fact, the leadership knows for a fact that there's been dissenting in the staff that don't like what's going on. And now you're going to pressure them even more by demanding that they're identified. They know then that it's like, okay, in a vote this close, 10 votes may decide it, 15 votes, we're just going to pad it with a few more. And so we'll see where this plays out. Now, since we have to get up early tomorrow, I should shut this stream down soon. Yeah. And I promised Mrs. Pigeon I would be keeping you up all night.
Hey, I'm already in trouble. What the heck, you know? So,
okay.
Doesn't matter.
I did talk about Mark Gottlieb. I'm going to read parts of his letter today. He wants this for the McLean guys. And I already give him the caveat. I don't agree with everything that he had to say, but he may have been one of those that actually voted.
Well, I think you should preface that with, before you read it, that, he had a serious biking accident last year and was basically paralyzed, and has just relearned how to walk. In fact, he walked into, which everybody was just flabbergasted, but the things they're doing at Fairfax Hospital with nerve regeneration and reattaching nerves and things like that is just stupendous. I don't know if he got shot up with stem cells or what the deal was, but he is walking. I mean, the guy was paralyzed, and just incredible. So I think that he is very, very tired, and a lot of the effort was expended by those vetted elders in this. And I think they're standing back and watching what's going on, trying to be a bit more, shall we say, I don't want to say apolitical, but they're trying to be opinionated, if that's even a word, so that in the event, praise the Lord, let's hope, we're victorious, that, we can start on a regeneration of the church. So that's just my humble opinion. I don't know.
Yes. So I'm not going to agree with everything in this letter, but
I got a split, Sal. I'm already
all right.
It's after 1 o'clock, brother. So
all right.
I'm already
Take care.
in trouble. All right, brother. Yeah. I'll talk to you tomorrow. God bless.
I'll have to give your wife another
plant. There you go. Yeah.
Tell her sorry for me.
That's awesome. All right, brother. God bless you.
God bless you. Take care.
See you guys. God bless.
So one reason I'm having the show, I want to, it's also a chance for me to just express and talk and fellowship with everyone. And then for the McLean people, I want you guys to see that we're not everything that what Dave Platt is characterizing us to be. I'm not going to go so far as to say that he's doing this deliberately, in the sense that he knows that we mean well, and then he's saying we're these bad people. That people, when stuff escalates, they can just perceive things that just aren't true, and then just speak intemperately. I think he's deeply mistaken to characterize us this way, and I think it's only right because we've been deplatformed. A pastor from the pulpit is making accusations about us that we don't believe are true, and he's painting us, he's marginalizing us, shaming us publicly, and we are praying for him today. We've invited him to come and talk to us. So he's, what he's done, the Lord heard our prayers. The Lord knows the truth. But the other thing I want to share is there are former elders of McLean Bible, so many former members that are with us. They see that this isn't right. The reason that the vote was so small on June 30th and it was close was so many of the members that could have been influential in the vote have already left. Had they known that they probably could have changed the situation, I think some of them would have hung on. I happened to hang on providentially because I said, I'm not in a position to look for another church. I'm homebound. And, when mom passes away, then maybe I'll come back to McLean. Mark Gottlieb was the elder who told me, he said, Salvador, when your mother passes, you're expected to come back to McLean. You're going to be part of the congregation with its rights and responsibilities, which include voting. So this letter was Mark Gottlieb, the elder who interviewed me to become a member. It breaks my heart a little bit because it was shortly after that he had his biking accident and he was paralyzed from the neck down. He broke his neck. We prayed for him that he'd recover. Half his body is working better, and I'm pleased to hear that he's walking, praise God, barely. And in the middle of all this trauma that he's through, which has been about 2 years, he composed this. I'm going to read it now. And then we'll shut down the stream so I can get up and go to church tomorrow. And it's going to be, I'm going to go to the two services there. And I have his permission to read this publicly. It's been posted on Facebook. I confirmed that I can read it. July 8th, 2021. To my brothers and sisters in Christ, co-laborers for the glory of God, members of McLean Bible Church. From Mark Gottlieb. For decades, we sat together under Lon's teaching. That is Lon Solomon, the former pastor. For decades, we sat together under Lon's teaching, hearing stories of how the Lord worked mightily in the life of an unlikely convert, how the boldness of a street preacher, the courage of a young pastor, and the prayers of a growing group of believers impacted Washington, D.C. Change this city, Lon said over and over again, and you'll change the world. Well, in the last few years, we've certainly seen our world change. As Lon prepared to retire, we invited David Platt to take his place. I won't replay the details, but over the last several years, we've watched David take the church we built, the church we love, the church we poured our hearts and souls and lives into, and turned it into a political, stripped-down version of what it used to be. Most ministries are gone. The leaders are doing things we disagree with. The unifying concern among those who knew the church is that David Platt is the wrong pastor for MBC. We were historically a conservative church, and David is left of center. He's taken our church down paths we never anticipated. Thousands of our brothers and sisters in Christ have left our congregation, some slipping away quietly, with over 100 writing letters to the elders as they went. David clearly did not know his flock or listen to them when they shared their concerns. I've been fighting this battle with the elders from the inside for almost 2 years with no success. I was with many of you at the congregational meeting last week. It was, wow, that was June 30th. I thought I saw Mark. I should have said hi to him. Sorry, I just had to interject that. I thought I saw Mark. I almost ran up to say hi to him, but I was gathering in line to get my ballot. That's beautiful news that he really was there. Praise the Lord. You know what? I'm just going to pause a little bit and say, Almighty God, thank you that he can walk. This man that was paralyzed from the neck down, God gave him the ability to walk. Praise the Lord. That's the man that's writing this letter. I've been fighting this battle with the elders from inside for almost 2 years with no success. I was with many of you at the congregational meeting last week. It was deeply bittersweet for me to see so many men and women I've known for decades, my brothers and sisters who partnered together to deliver turkeys on Thanksgiving, send thousands and thousands of teenagers to summer camps, build a God-glorifying building where people could come and hear the gospel and share their own stories of changed lives. But we weren't there to celebrate what God had done in and through us. We were there to take back our church by voting down the new elder nominees. In such matters, he who controls the microphone, In such matters, he who controls the microphone controls the dialogue and paints the situation for all to see. If it has not been obvious to you, David, Wade, and the current elders control the mic. They can influence the masses to hear their version of what is happening. And in the last few weeks, they've done a good job of it. Although probably not intentional, they're using cancel culture techniques, legal threats, shaming, and taking away platforms to prevent you from having a voice. You had no voice last week, and you will have none on July 18th. On July 18th, the vote will swing to their favor as they are bringing the vote to the Sunday services. Therefore, I'm strongly encouraging you and those who have stood with you to admit defeat and walk away calmly. Let me explain why. Scripture teaches many things about the church's conduct. God wants the church to be unified. 1 Corinthians 1:10, Philippians or Philemon 4:2, 1 John 4:19 through 21, and Psalm 133. God desires us to submit to those in authority over us, Hebrews and Peter. Bitterness and anger can give the devil a foothold in our lives and our churches, Ephesians. 2, we have given it a good fight. But we have not been able to move MBC back a single step. Any further escalation on our part will only cause further escalation on their part. And the problem is that at this point, we may harm the reputation of Christ in the eyes of non-believers. Just as Paul chastised the Corinthian church for bringing their division and disputes in public, so we will bring the name of Christ into disrepute, thanks to the high profile of David Platt. It will likely bring media attention. Secular news organizations love seeing evangelical Christians fight and tear each other apart. Finally, it's easy when injustice has been done to be tempted not just to seek justice, but revenge. We can easily seek to get even, or adopt the mindset that if the church is going to be damaged, then it might as well do some damage as well. Then we might as well do some damage as well. However, God is abundantly clear when he says, "Vengeance is mine." Paul ends this section by saying, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." If I'm being honest, I hope the vote does not go in your favor on the 18th, because I think it will completely destroy whatever is left of the church and at the same time tarnish the name of Christ across this nation. Let me explain why. The majority of those who would be on your side have left for other churches over the past 2 years. Even if you win, they are not coming back. Of those left today, you are in the minority. Should you eventually oust David, more than half of the current members, essentially the majority of the young people, would leave. You'd be left with a remnant, with no clear plan on how to move the church forward. What pastor worth his salt would come to be the teacher pastor of a broken church consisting of older, bitter people with public carnage around every corner? Eventually, with a smaller congregation, you'd have to lay off much of our staff and downsize, including having to sell the building, which is something I know that matters deeply to so many of you, including me. My flesh wants to see you win and take back our church, but my conscience knows better. You're 2 years too late. Unfortunately, the damage is done. David, Wade, and the elders are digging in their heels. They control the high ground and they control the narrative. So what's the best path forward? I'll share what I'm choosing to do. Sharon and I are joining a new congregation, fighting to be faithful to where God is scattering us, seeking the good of our city and praying for the health and unity of both the new church where we are being planted and MBC where we were raised. Lon spent years encouraging us to finish well. To finish well, and to finish well, we must be fiercely loyal to our Lord Jesus Christ above all else. We cannot claim to love Christ and not love his bride, the church. My heart goes out to all of you who have valiantly tried to take back our church. Let us not forget that it is ultimately God's church to use, lift up, and protect us, and protect as he sees fit. God seems to have taken the best members of MBC. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to laugh. Okay. I'm going to finish this, but this is a little funny, and I'll explain why. When he says God has taken the best members of MBC, God seems to have taken the best members of MBC and scattered them to the farthest reaches of Northern Virginia. May we be faithful to him wherever we land. Through these new places God put us, I believe we can still impact this city for the name of Christ. And as we well know, if we change the city, we can change the world. Respectfully yours, Mark Gottlieb, former elder of McLean Bible Church, 1996 through 2020. So there you have it. He was actually one of those who recruited. He's one of those who recruited David Platt. Now I'll tell you the funny thing. He said, God seems to have taken the best members of MBC and scattered them to the farthest reaches in Northern Virginia. That means the people who pulled off this vote on June 30th, including me, are not the best. And at the meeting tonight, everyone just roared in laughter. It's like, yeah, we're kind of the outcast soldiers. We're not the elite troops. We're left to try to pull this off. I said I was going to disagree with this, and this is the elder that said, Salvador, when your mother passes away, and she passed away April 30th, he said you have to come back to McLean Bible Church. He told me that about 2 years ago, and he resigned shortly thereafter. So I'm in this fight whether I like it or not. But let's consider what he's saying. He's saying, don't do this because it's going to cause division. Don't do this because it's going to create bad press. Don't do this because maybe the church is going to fall apart anyway. And I respect his call on this. On the other hand, this is a chance. I cast my vote to say no, I don't affirm what the leadership is doing. Even if we lose, it'll be a matter of record that this will probably be the largest margin of disapproval at any congregational meeting. Secondly, just as a matter of principle, I made a contract to be a part of this church. And if teaching is going forward that's wrong, if there are questionable use and stewardship of the finances, I'm obligated, while I'm exercising my vote, to call that out. And I have to trust God for the consequences. There are many things where we could be comfortable if we don't act morally and call something what it is. So yes, I could just withdraw my membership at this point. I have, at a personal level, I have more time to do other things. But I feel that when David Platt on July 4th said we're a divisive group and all that, I said that confirmed to me there's something wrong, and I could cave. So no disrespect to Mark Gottlieb, who said this is 2 years too late. I agree that it is late, but I feel I have to cast this vote, because the alternative is this church, this property, this complex, this pulpit will then be dominated. We have a chance to remove people that are not teaching God's people correctly. I think that's a plus. Would we, he said, well, all these young people may leave. Well, I would hope if they leave, they go to better churches, or at least churches that'll teach them the right thing, because the alternative is we let this continue. So as I was reading these points, so that's my feeling. And so many of us that were gathered that are part of this group that David calls divisive, we read that letter. We have the greatest respect for Mark Gottlieb, but we're gonna still show up for the vote. We are not taking his final advice and just walking away. We are going to take a stand and say we're going to try to remove the current leadership. They are not shepherding the flock. They're in violation of what they signed up to do at this point. If they get removed and they stop teaching, I think that's going to be a good thing. It's going to be painful. There's no question that however this turns out, it's going to be painful for the church. It's already painful. We are not, that we talk about divisiveness. What's it like to lose 2/3 of your congregation? Is that our fault? That is not our fault. So we prayed tonight. We prayed tonight. We prayed for David Platt, Mike Kelsey, the leadership. The scriptures that were read to us as we thought this, it said, pray for your enemies, pray for your leaders. We did that. We did it with a sincere heart. We're not all the things that we've been called by the leaders of the church. And so the vote is just the mechanics of this. If the no vote prevails on D-Day, which is July 18th, right, we're sitting right now at D-Day +7, +8. If this vote prevails the way that we're voting, which is no, they're putting more elders for nomination, and we're going to vote no. We're trying to get even more people to what's left of the worst, because that's why I was laughing. They said the best have already left the church, and what remaining is not so good. Well, I'm part of the remnant. So let's call this the remnant. We are the remnant. And, I don't think Mark meant any derision, but it was the reason I'm laughing. I said, I don't think he realized what he was saying. We, the remnant, are probably not the most elite troops, so to speak. But we are ambassadors, and we are soldiers of the Lord who will act peaceably. If the vote goes the way that we are hoping, yeah, we could lose. But if it goes the way we're hoping, then there'll be, within 90 days, it's mandatory by our Constitution that a vote of confidence has to be made for the elder board. If that vote of confidence fails, which is probably the next step, then all the leadership all the elders are removed. It might be that Mike Kelsey Wade Burnett, and David Platt are also removed. It'll be a total house cleaning. It'll be a total house cleaning. And the church will have to rebuild. The painful process of rebuilding, because we've lost already 2/3 of the congregation. And Mark Gottlieb is correct. This could be whichever way the vote goes. And one thing he didn't point out, whatever way the vote goes, it could be a bloodbath of departures. Whichever way. You could end up having a congregation then that is now 20% the size of what it was only like in the last year and a half. But there could be a house cleaning here. So Emery says here, Sal, if you're going to fight, you have to go all the way. Platt, the elder board, Kelsey, and everyone Platt has hired to go. Yes, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a clean out process. And I think one reason that I had to respectfully disagree with Mark is he's characterizing if our side wins, this is going to be bad for the church. If our side loses, this is going to be bad for the church too. It's not like the outcomes are going to, there's not going to be any good outcome because of the damage done already. It's, the seeds of all this lack of transparency, these non-disclosure agreements, et cetera, no tracking of the money, the woke gospel, and now from the pulpit, us being kind of shamed unjustly. I lost my train of thought. Having a Joe Biden moment. I better go to sleep. Well, anyway, however this plays out, yeah, all the seeds have been planted. All the damage has already been in place. So if God says, if the vote is decided on July 18th, I bet it's still going to be a narrow vote if we lose. And that'll be God's signal to many in the congregation. I'm still planning to try to remain on a little longer and just, just a time to think, because I'm in the middle of a huge transition personally. Many of them may leave, but at least I think that'll be God's signal to say, guys, you did a great job. You tried. And the scriptures that came to mind was when Joseph was sold to these slave traders, and then he ended up in Egypt, and that ended up being for the good. So man can mean something for evil, God will mean it for good. God can turn around a situation for the good. When that happened, there was one brother of Joseph that was trying to rescue him. That was Reuben. Reuben had sinned in a way that offended God and his dad, Jacob, but he stood up and tried to do the right thing, and God overruled him. But he was still on the right side of the issue, trying to rescue his brother. And so my thoughts are, it's like, Lord, if you don't mean this to happen, it won't. But we will stand for what we believe is right. We are not basing this on what we think the outcome will be or won't be. We're basing this on the fact that we are voting our conscience, that bad teaching and bad management are there. We're casting our vote to indicate that. And we're trusting the Lord, whatever happens, that he will work things for the good, for his glory. And so to my brothers and sisters at McLean who heard this, thank you for listening. And thank you for hanging out with us tonight. And to those who are not part of McLean Bible Church, thanks for joining in on all this kind of in our D-Day countdown to July 18th. Emery, God bless you, sir. You take care, and take care of everyone who's still with us. And you'll hear, I'm planning to do a stream tomorrow. Maybe every day on McLean Bible. And I'm trying to invite guests to give their testimony. And, as the day, we'll just see who I'm able to recruit to come up on this show and share their views. So take care. Good night, and God bless you. Lord willing, I'll see some of you tomorrow night. And Emery, I'm pulling for you, brother. I know you're in the middle of graduate school. I can't believe in your final exam week and you're spending time on my channel to hear all this. But God bless you. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for your encouragement and support. And thank you for your channel where you've brought focus and advertisement to these issues even before I even know that I would be getting involved in this high profile vote. So thank you so much, Emery. To everyone else, and Emery and those joining us by recording, may the Lord be with you. Take care.